Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a great week this week. This video is basically what the lesson I was going to do during our Google Hangout this week for place value and number sense. So let me go ahead and get started on it. Hopefully this won't be too long. Let me go ahead and read through the task first, and then we'll talk about the details. So the task says there are almost 40,000 fourth graders in Mississippi and almost 400,000 fourth graders in Texas. There are almost 4 million fourth graders in the United States. We write 4 million as 4,000,000, 000. How many times more fourth graders are there in Texas than in Mississippi? How many times more fourth graders are there in the United States than in Texas? Use the approximate populations listed above to solve. There are about 4,000 fourth graders in Washington, D.C. How many times more fourth graders are there in the United States than in Washington, D.C.? All right, so let's go ahead and, as with any good word problem, we are going to break this word problem apart and pick out the important information that we need to know to solve what it's asking us to solve. So first, let's go through and let's look at the questions that it's asking us. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight those in green. The first question, if we go down to the second paragraph, it says, how many times more fourth graders are there in Texas than in Mississippi? Now, I'm going to go ahead and underline one of the key words, and hopefully you've already picked this out. The key word in that question is, or words, how many times more? How many times more? And what that's telling us to do, that's telling us that we're going to need to multiply. We're going to look for a bigger number, a greater number, because it's how many times more. You're getting more of something, more of a number. So how many times more fourth graders are there in Texas than in Mississippi? So what we need to do now, we need to go and look at that first paragraph, and let's find out, well, how many fourth graders are there in Texas and how many fourth graders are there in Mississippi? So if we look in the first paragraph, it starts by saying there are almost 40,000 fourth graders in Mississippi. So we want to go ahead and highlight that information because we're going to need that to help us solve our problem. Then it goes on to say, and almost 400,000 fourth graders in Texas. So we're also going to need to highlight that information because we're going to need that too. Now, which state was listed first in the question? Well, that was Texas. So I'm going to come up here at the top of my page and I'm going to write the abbreviation for Texas, TX, and then I'm going to write out beside it 400,000. Okay? Now, next was Mississippi. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to write the abbreviation for Mississippi, MS. And then what I want to do is I want to actually line up all digits according to their place value. So if we look again, there are almost 40,000 fourth graders in Mississippi. So I want to come up here and I want to write 40,000 underneath my 400,000. Just like this. So now you can see each place value is lined up so that I can compare. Now, if you think back to my instructional video and we talked about the place value chart, and at one point we were talking about moving through the place value chart, and as we go to the left, we get greater, and each time we move from one place value position to the next place value position, we increase 10 times. So let's compare 400,000 to 40,000. Well, if you notice, in 400,000, the 4, if you put this in a place value chart, the 4 in 400,000 is in the hundred thousands place value. Sorry, it didn't all come out. That's HTH for hundred thousands. If you compare that to Mississippi's fourth graders, the 4 in 40,000 is in the 10,000s place. I'm going to write that down here. So that's 10,000s place. Okay, so if we're comparing, we're going from Mississippi to Texas because Texas came first. That was 400,000. Mississippi came second. That was 40,000. Which number is greater? Well, we know 400,000 is greater, so we are going to move to the left in our place value chart. Now, if we go up here and we draw an arrow from Mississippi's 4 in the 10,000 spot to Texas 4 in the 100,000 spot, how many place value positions did we move? Well, we moved one place value. So what was that increase in the value? It was 10 times. 10 times. So therefore, to answer that question, we can say there are 10 times more fourth graders in Texas than in Mississippi. So there we've just answered the first question by doing a place value comparison. Now, let me go ahead and I'm going to erase all of this. If it's going to let me. All right, so I'm going to erase all of this now, and I'm going to go to my second question. Now, my second question, let's go ahead back, and we're going to highlight that in green again. So my second question says, how many times more fourth graders are there in the United States than in Texas? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing we just did. So first, let's go ahead, let's find our important information. It says, the first one listed was the United States, so it says there are almost 4 million fourth graders in the United States. And then we know there are, from our last question, there are 400,000 fourth graders in Texas. Now again, which one was listed first in our question? Well, it was the United, well, that's not going to work, is it? The United States. The United States came first. And how many fourth graders approximately are there in the United States? There are 4 million. Next, it was Texas with 400,000. Again, which one is greater? 4 million or 400,000? Well, it's 4 million. So we're going to point our arrow to the left, which means that as we move through our place values to compare, we're going to once again move to the left because we want to know how many times more fourth graders. So we know how many times more, that's going to give us a greater number, a bigger number. All right, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to do my place value chart again. So I'm going to do the United States, and that was 4 million. And then I'm going to write Texas fourth grade population next. Again, lining up my numbers and each digit by their place value. Texas was 400,000. Now I'm hoping at this point visually you can see what the answer is going to be. But we'll go ahead and line it up. We have our place values filled. For the U.S. fourth grade population, the 4 in 4 million is in the millions place. In Texas, the 4 in 400,000 is in the hundred thousands place. Now I'm just going to abbreviate again. Well, how many place values did the 4 shift to the left when it went from 400,000 to 4 million? Well, we moved 1 place value to the left, so that's 10 times. Now, again, what are we going to answer for our question? How many times more fourth graders are there in the United States than in Texas? We're going to say there are 10 times more fourth graders in the United States than in Texas. All right, so you can see that each time you move 1 place value to the left in the place value chart, you're increasing the number's value 10 times. So you also want to think about, well, each time you move through the place value chart, you're moving 10 times. So what if you move more than 1 time? Well, let's look at an example of comparing the United States and Mississippi. Let's erase all this. So my question is, let's compare the United States, which is 4 million, to Mississippi, which is 40,000. Again, which number is bigger? 4 million. So I'm moving to the left in my place value chart as I compare. So I'm going to line up my numbers again. So the United States was 4 million. Mississippi, lining up according to place value, was 40,000. Now let's go ahead Let's identify each place value. Okay, now as we're comparing, we're moving to the left. Now, the 4 in 40,000 for Mississippi is in the 10,000s place. 10,000th place. The 4 in 4 million for the United States population of 4th graders is in the millions place. So how many place values to the left do you have to move to go from the 10,000s place to the hundredth or to the millions place? Sorry. So you're going to go 1, 2. Again, each time you move, that's an increase of 10 times. So here's 10 times here, 10 times here. Now, you can't say, well, I have 10 2 times, so it's 20. I actually have to multiply each of my 10s together. So 10 times 10, oh, and I'm writing 100 times 100. Let's fix that and do it again. So we have our 10 times and our 10 times. 10 times 10, which equals 100. So when we're comparing how many times more 4th graders are there in the United States than in Mississippi, well, this time we're saying it's going to be 100 times more. So the answer to my question would be there are 100 times more 4th graders in the U.S. than in Mississippi. Okay, so I feel like I've given you enough tools at this point. I want you to go ahead and, let me erase all this. I want you to answer this last question on your own. And it says, there are about 4,000 4th graders in Washington, D.C. How many times more 4th graders are there in the United States than in Washington, D.C.? So I want you to answer, take just a couple minutes, I want you to answer that question. And here's what I'd like for you to do. I want you to send me a message either via email or through Converge. And I want you to just send the answer. And I want you to tell me what you had to do to get that answer. So I want you to tell me your final answer for that question. And then I want you to just a very brief description of what you had to do to get to that answer. So good luck. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be putting out the final assessment, kind of your exit slip for this lesson, on Friday, by Friday evening. So anyway, you guys take care and hope to see you soon. Bye.